Welcome to Showdown. I'm your host, and today we are diving deep into a subject that is not just defining the 21st century, but, well, it's probably dictating its entire geopolitical and economic future.
And I'm your expert for this discussion. We're focusing today on the two absolute titans of Asia: China, the established industrial powerhouse we're calling the giant dragon, and India, the rapidly accelerating contender, the rising elephant.
And that dynamic is really the engine of our current global moment, isn't it? On one hand, you have this immense economic interdependence.
You and me and you, as the sources put it.
Exactly. They're so tangled up in supply chains, you can't just pull them apart. But on the other hand, strategically, they're in this direct head-to-head confrontation.
We see it everywhere. Diplomatic maneuvering, the race for tech supremacy, military posturing in the Himalayas, it's constant.
So our mission today is to get past the headlines. We really want to dissect these two behemoths, look at their internal mechanics, and understand the fundamental structural differences that are going to dictate their future.
And to really get why they act the way they do on the world stage, you have to look at their foundational blueprints, what we're calling their national operating systems.
Right. And you've brought a fantastic core metaphor to help us understand this.
Exactly. The central comparison that unlocks almost everything is this. China operates in CEO mode. India, on the other hand, operates in board of directors mode.
CEO versus board of directors. I love that. And you're saying that single distinction explains their speed, their efficiency, and their biggest challenges.
It explains almost everything.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's start with the root system, the governance models, and the constraints they create.
Let's do it.
So China first. The super CEO mode. You describe it as a machine of efficiency.
Think of it like a hyper-efficient global corporation. At the top, you have a single absolute authority, the CEO. And the execution force, the ability to get things done, is virtually unchallenged internally.
And when we say absolute authority, it's not just about the person at the very top.
Yeah.
This mindset, this efficiency, it goes all the way down, right?
It's completely systemic. The sources just keep highlighting the sheer concentration of power. The internal friction is, it's almost negligible compared to a multi-party system.
So when an actual strategy is decided, say, to dominate the global battery market,
there is immediate, total, and importantly, incentivized buy-in from the capital all the way down to the most remote provincial government. There's no debate. It's just, how do we do this faster?
could you give us a sense of that power at the local level?
Mm-hmm.
Because the speed of their development seems to come from there.
Okay, look at a local leader. Let's take, for instance, a district secretary in a major commercial hub like Shanghai's Jing'an district.
Right.
The control they have over local resource permits, land use, administrative decisions, it often rivals the power of a president of a small country.
Wow.
It's not just about hierarchy, it's the ability to command and mobilize resources instantly without consulting dozens of competing stakeholders or worrying about legal challenges.
And that capacity for mobilization,
Yeah.
that's where we see these incredible infrastructure projects.
It's the most visible manifestation, absolutely. Look at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge.
A massive project.
Massive. We're talking a 34-mile-long bridge and tunnel system across one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. It had to coordinate 3 different legal jurisdictions, immense engineering challenges.
And yet it was done.
Done in record time. It just showcases the CEO's ability to command consensus and deploy whatever resources are needed.
The high-speed rail network is probably the most iconic example of that scale.
For sure. China built the world's largest high-speed rail network, over 45,000 kilometers of it, in a little more than a decade.
That's mind-boggling.
It is. Now compare that pace to infrastructure projects in democracies, where just acquiring the land for a new railway can stall a project for 5, 10, sometimes 20 years.
So the CEO mode turns these ambitious blueprints into reality at a shocking speed.
Whether it's physical stuff like railways or futuristic strategies like Industry 4.0 or a national AI framework, the entire system is just calibrated for speed, for output, and for decisive action.
Okay, so if China is that ultra-fast, disciplined CEO, then India is the loud, often messy, but maybe more resilient board of directors.
That's the perfect way to frame it. India's system is defined by a fundamental inherent complexity that, in many ways, is even deeper than China's.
And how does that play out?
You have to imagine a company with dozens of powerful shareholders. They all have a seat at the table, they all demand to be heard, and they are all fighting for their slice of the pie.
The sources mention that even though China has 56 ethnic groups, India's internal fragmentation is actually deeper.
Much deeper. It's the sheer diversity of language and religion. We're talking about literally thousands of distinct ethnic and tribal groups, hundreds of languages spoken, with 22 officially recognized.
And each of those can represent a different political interest.
A different voting bloc, a different cultural identity, so the power structure is naturally spread out. The central government is in a constant tug of war with 28 powerful states, each with its own political parties, regional strongmen, and entrenched interests.
That sounds like the normal push and pull of a big democracy. But you flagged something deeper, something unique to India.
Yes. The immovable anchor on the whole system's efficiency. The legacy of the caste system.
Which goes back centuries.
Millennia, really. It started in the Vedic period, originally based on occupation, but over time it was solidified by religion and bloodline into this rigid, non-negotiable social hierarchy.
And even though it was legally abolished, it's still a major factor.
It's not a footnote. It is a living, breathing mechanism that profoundly influences modern India.
In what ways? How does it show up today?
It drives voting behavior. It shapes government policy. And critically, it determines how resources are allocated. It creates this persistent, severe social stratification, this resource injustice.
So it's a barrier to development.
A massive barrier. It hinders merit-based economic growth and the efficient flow of talent, because who you are often matters more than what you can do.
Which brings us to what you call the cost of consensus. Every big decision has to go through this noisy board meeting.
Precisely. Whether you're talking about a major economic reform, like changing land or labor laws, or just planning a big infrastructure project, it requires this long, drawn-out, multi-level negotiation.
So you've got the federal government, state governments.
And powerful ethnic and religious bodies and specific economic cartels, they all need to either agree or at the very least be appeased.
Which explains the endless delays in infrastructure we hear about.
The delays are systemic. They're a feature, not a bug, of this system. Think about big projects that need a lot of land, like railways.
Right.
They often get stalled for years, even decades, because of land acquisition. Local farmers, landowners, specific caste groups, they refuse to sell or demand huge payouts, and they're often backed by local politicians.
And even when things do get built, there are issues.
The administrative efficiency is just not there. So you see reports of newly built roads falling apart after one monsoon, or public projects failing. It all points back to low efficiency and slack oversight, a fatal weakness of the decentralized board of directors mode.
So boiling it down, we're talking about vertical control versus horizontal compromise.
That's the core tension. China, the CEO, is all about vertical penetration and executive power. The philosophy is command and forbid.
So directives from the top just flow down smoothly?
Rapidly and smoothly. And crucially, local officials are intensely incentivized by the center based on performance metrics they can measure. GDP growth, foreign investment, pollution targets.
Which creates this fierce internal competition to deliver.
Exactly. The system sacrifices local nuance for national consistency and speed. Whereas in India, the board, it's all about horizontal consensus and political checks and balances.
So a federal command from New Delhi can hit a brick wall at the state level.
A massive brick wall. State governments have to defend their local interests, their language groups, and that incredibly complex web of competing caste loyalties.
And while that diffusion of power is a hallmark of democracy,
it is administratively toxic. It guarantees certain freedoms, for sure, but it severely poisons the system's ability to act decisively or consistently across the whole country. The system spends most of its energy just negotiating with itself.
let's dig deeper into that administrative burden, specifically the caste system. The government tried to fix historical injustices with the reservation policy. Quotas.
Yes, quotas in university admissions and highly sought-after government jobs for lower castes, the scheduled castes and tribes. The goal was noble. It was meant to engineer social equity.
A necessary corrective action.
Absolutely. But the reality is that these policies have had these profound, unintended economic costs. In some ways, they've made the whole situation more political and corrosive.
How so? What are the big side effects?
There are a few, but they're all intertwined. The first is something we can call the talent inverse flow.
Talent inverse flow. What's that?
Highly educated people from upper castes, who often have access to the best schools, find themselves shut out of certain government jobs or university programs simply because of the quota system.
I can imagine that creates a lot of resentment.
It does. And it leads to this tragic waste of human capital in the public sector. These highly educated people either move into the private sector, which is more merit-based, or they just emigrate. A quiet but constant brain drain from the very government bodies that need them most.
So if merit takes a backseat to meeting distribution targets, the second consequence must be a drop in efficiency.
That's the systemic cost. Efficiency erosion. When key jobs in public administration, say overseeing railway safety or environmental approvals, are filled not meritocratically, the whole machine just grinds to a halt.
And that directly leads back to the infrastructure problems we talked about.
It's a direct cause. The expertise gap becomes a real problem, especially in technical fields. It's a structural roadblock to modernization.
But you also mentioned that the caste system gets weaponized by political parties.
And that's where it becomes truly corrosive. The third side effect is that it becomes a political tool. Caste isn't just a social category in India, it's the single most powerful weapon in politics.
How does that work?
Parties constantly appeal to specific caste groups to lock in guaranteed vote banks. And they often do it by manipulating the quota system itself.
Manipulating it how?
By creating new, smaller subcategories for quotas right before an election. It's a tactic to peel off a specific group of swing voters from a larger caste bloc. It wins elections in the short term, but it makes social conflict worse, not better.
So the conflict becomes permanent political.
Exactly. And it requires massive, continuous government attention. And this really gets to the critical trade-off, the core difference in where national energy goes.
Right.
China's system puts almost all its political capital into maximizing external efficiency and output. Its success is measured globally. Trade surplus, GDP growth. India, by its very nature, is forced to spend a huge amount of energy on internal balancing and distribution, just negotiating its own social structure to keep functioning.
And that internal noise, even if it provides a certain kind of resilience, it comes at a huge cost in global competitiveness.
A massive cost, especially when it comes to industrial capacity and scaled execution. And that's the perfect pivot to how they approach technology and manufacturing.
The iOS versus Android strategy. I love this analogy. Let's start with China's iOS ecosystem, the strategy of total control.
The iOS analogy is perfect because it signifies this relentless drive for industrial sovereignty. The goal is to control the entire industrial chain, from raw materials through component design and manufacturing, all the way to the final product you hold in your hand.
They want to be the platform architect on the whole stack.
Precisely. And that's what gives the World Factory its incredible resilience. It's not just about cheap labor anymore.
It's systemic.
It is. China is the only nation in the world with a complete industrial system across all 39 industrial categories defined by the UN.
What does that mean in practical terms?
It means if a part breaks, they can make a replacement internally. If a supply line gets cut off, they can pivot. It gives them this unmatched supply chain stability and makes them the global export leader.
And we're seeing this vertical integration push into really high-tech sectors now.
Absolutely. Strategic fields like 5G infrastructure, the new energy vehicle supply chain, high-end consumer electronics. The goal is to do it all at home, from the initial IP and design to the final assembly, a closed, highly efficient loop.
It seems like Western policy has actually accelerated this strategy.
It's been a profound accelerator. The containment efforts, especially the U.S. chip bans, had this completely unexpected consequence.
It didn't cripple them.
No, it acted as a massive catalyst. It forced Beijing to double down, to pour colossal sums of money into indigenous R&D, especially in semiconductors. The geopolitical pressure just reinforced the CEO mode's core strategy, self-reliance above all else.
Okay, so that's the closed iOS model. Now let's pivot to India's Android ecosystem, to the open architecture.
Right. They aren't trying to control the whole chain. Their goal is to be the world's leader in system integration and application development.
Playing to their strengths.
Exactly. Deep strengths in IT services, software development, and that huge pool of English-speaking engineers. And their strategy is built on this revolutionary public good, the India Stack.
The India Stack. This is their big leapfrog moment, especially for financial inclusion. Break it down for us. What are the key components?
There are three core interconnected parts. First, you have Aadhaar. That's the biometric digital ID system. Over 1.3 billion citizens have a unique ID, which is the foundation for everything
Or
else.
the who are you layer.
Precisely. Then you have UPI, the Unified Payments Interface. This was the real game changer for transactions. It's an open, instant payment system that lets any bank or app connect to it.
And the adoption was huge.
Massive and incredibly fast. Transaction volumes blew past many developed nations in just a few years. And the third piece, which is the next frontier, is ONDC.
ONDC.
Open Network Digital Commerce. The goal here is to basically democratize e-commerce,
Hmm.
create an open protocol to break the monopoly of giants like Amazon and Flipkart, and level the playing field for small businesses.
So the advantages are clear. Agility, massive scale, low cost for startups.
The whole economy is optimized for applications. It's brilliant in its own way. It's cemented India's global lead in IT services and outsourcing.
But that architecture, the board of directors model, reveals a structural flaw. If they're all about software integration, what's the fatal weakness?
The hardware layer. The whole system is top-heavy. You have this brilliant software built on a very precarious physical foundation.
They don't make the stuff it runs on.
They don't. India lacks significant control over crucial hardware and manufacturing. The dependency is severe. The sources confirm that in 2024, 70% of their electronic product imports still came from China.
70%. Even with all the talk of de-risking, that's a massive choke point.
It's the ultimate choke point. If those supply lines are squeezed, the entire Android ecosystem is vulnerable, which is why their push into semiconductor manufacturing is so critical and so incredibly difficult.
It's a high-stakes gamble.
The highest. India is aggressively pursuing chip manufacturing, and they have a lot of strategic support from the West. But you can't just build a leading-edge fabrication plant, a fab, with a political directive. It requires perfect industrial conditions.
What are the biggest hurdles they face? The non-negotiables.
They're monumental. First, power stability. A fab needs an ultra-stable, ultra-high-voltage power supply. A flicker, even for a millisecond, can ruin a batch of wafers worth millions.
And India's power grid has struggled with that.
It has. Second, water purity. Fabs need huge amounts of water that's millions of times purer than drinking water. Just securing a reliable supply of that is a constant, massive challenge. And third, you need the talent infrastructure.
Not just engineers, but very specific kinds of engineers.
Exactly. A vast, local supply of specialized chemical, materials, and electrical engineers with specific experience in microfabrication. That's an expertise pool that takes decades of consistent investment in education to build.
So at the end of the day, India is brilliant at using technology.
But China is still the world's master at making technology.
Which transitions us perfectly to the future race. It's a long-term view. We've established China's CEO mode is slowing down, the efficiency dividend is shrinking, they have to upgrade the stock they already have.
Right, the CEO mode was amazing for getting to scale, but now they're hitting some serious headwinds, 3 big ones all at the same time.
Okay, let's name them.
First, the general economic slowdown. Second, a deep and stubborn real estate market depression, which is a huge problem for local government finances and household wealth. And third, the demographic time bomb. Rapid population aging.
So their strategic response has to be a pivot from quantity to quality, the stock upgrade.
Exactly. The focus has shifted from doing big to doing strong. They're trying to move the entire industrial base up the value chain.
And the catchphrase for this is the new quality productive forces. What does that actually mean?
The old model was about scale and cheap labor steel, cement, basic manufacturing. The new quality productive forces are about dominating high-value proprietary fields through tech innovation. Next-gen computing, advanced biotech, commercial spaceflight, new materials. It's an explicit attempt to escape the middle-income trap by owning the technologies of the future, using the CEO mode's ability to direct massive state funding into these specific bets.
And alongside that, they're trying to rebalance the economy.
Yes, the second big push is expanding domestic demand. A painful transition away from exports and investment towards a consumer-driven model. And that's proving really difficult, culturally and economically. It's a complete overhaul of the existing system.
On the other side of the coin, India's biggest asset isn't its existing stock, but its raw, untapped potential, the incremental expansion.
The demographic dividend. India has the world's largest and youngest workforce. By 2030, they're projected to have over 1 billion working-age people. That is a massive engine for long-term growth that China is rapidly losing.
And the geopolitical winds are at their back.
Absolutely. India is getting unprecedented access to technology and capital from the West. They are the poster child for the China +1 de-risking strategy. They're seen not just as an economic partner, but as a necessary political counterweight to China.
So the race is defined. 2 very different structural contests.
It is. You have China's efficiency and the difficulty of a stock upgrade, retooling a massive mature system, and that's up against India's population and political trust, and the challenge of incremental expansion.
And the winner is whoever solves their own structural problems first.
Exactly. Can India convert that raw demographic potential into a skilled, productive workforce before China successfully moves up the value chain? That's the race.
Now let's talk hard power, because at the end of the day, the ultimate test of a state is its military capability. And
Yeah.
here, the gap seems, well, overwhelming.
The conclusion from the sources is pretty stark. On paper, China has a crushing systemic superiority, and it's a direct result of the CEO Mo's ability to consistently modernize its military, fueled by that massive industrial base.
What are the clearest signs of this advantage?
The Navy. The naval expansion is the single best indicator. Their shipbuilding rate is famously described as making dumplings mass production at a speed that is globally unmatched.
These aren't just small ships.
No, we're talking advanced Type 055 destroyers that rival the best in the world and a rapidly growing carrier fleet, including the new Fujian with its advanced electromagnetic catapults. Their total tonnage just dwarfs India's.
And in the air.
Same story, mass deployment of 5th-gen stealth fighters like the J-20 and J-35. They're investing heavily in 6th-gen research. And then there's the strategic deterrence,
Missiles.
advanced missile tech, hypersonic weapons, space militarization. It all gives them powerful regional denial capabilities, basically the ability to keep foreign forces far away from their shores. It's a vertically integrated war machine.
So how does India, the board of directors, compare?
Their defense acquisition perfectly reflects their governance model. It's a multinational, fragmented jigsaw puzzle.
A mixed bag of equipment from Russia, France, Israel, the U.S. What kind of problems does that create?
A logistics nightmare. You have 4 or 5 different systems for maintenance, training, and spare parts for your fighter jets alone. The costs and complexity are exponential.
And that complexity must have other consequences.
It directly contributes to an extremely high accident rate. Frequent crashes, ship collisions, fires. This isn't just bad luck. It points to severe systemic shortfalls in maintenance and training that come from trying to run a cohesive force with non-standardized gear.
The sources pointed to their aircraft carrier acquisition as a classic example of this problem.
The Admiral Gorshkov case, yes. Russia gifted them the hull of an old carrier, but then charged billions for the refit. The project had massive delays and cost overruns. It locks India into this long-term dependency for maintenance and parts instead of building their own domestic defense industry.
And even beyond logistics, there's a straight-up technology gap.
A fatal one in some cases. Take anti-ship missiles. China's YJ-18 missile can outrange India's best system, the BrahMos, by a significant margin. Meaning Chinese ships can attack from outside the engagement range of Indian ships. They can literally inflict damage without being exposed to return fire. It's a huge tactical advantage.
But geography always complicates things. How do the variables of land and sea play out?
You have to look at them separately. In the Indian Ocean, India has the inherent positional advantage. China's navy can project power, but India has shorter supply lines and established bases. They can afford to be patient, to wait for the opponent to stretch themselves thin.
A home field advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on land, along the Himalayan border, that's where China's infrastructure maniac status pays off.
The railways and roads.
Yes. Projects like the Sichuan-Tibet Railway dramatically improve their ability to deploy troops and supplies to the high-altitude front. And their unified Western Theater Command ensures that deployment is fast and efficient. It's vertical control in action.
So given this asymmetry, how is India adapting its strategy? They can't win a head-to-head industrial war.
They've made a very pragmatic pivot. They've moved from a passive, defensive deterrence, we will defend our land, to an active, punitive deterrence.
Punitive deterrence.
The thinking is, we might not defeat you, but we can and will inflict such high, unacceptable costs, economically, politically, militarily, that you'll decide it's just not worth it. It's a strategy based on resilience and raising the stakes, not on achieving superiority.
That's fascinating. And it's amazing how that internal operating system dictates everything, right down to their foreign policy.
It absolutely does. Let's look at how the CEO and the board play on the international stage.
Okay, China's CEO mode first. You say it leads to clear alignment and strategic depth.
Their diplomacy is focused. They clearly identify core allies and main rivals, and they don't waste resources. The most visible example is the back-to-back alliance with Russia.
A hedge against the U.S.
A powerful hedge, cemented by economics. Trade hit a record $244 billion in 2024. China is a lifeline, buying Russian oil and gas. And maybe more importantly, Chinese brands have completely filled the void left by Western companies.
Like in the car market.
Over 60% of new cars sold in Russia are Chinese, nearly 90% of smartphones. It's a deep integration of their supply chains.
And beyond Russia, they're building this bigger economic circle.
Yes, with a laser focus on the global south, especially ASEAN and Africa. ASEAN is their largest trade partner, nearing $1 trillion. Africa has been their largest for 16 years. These aren't just markets, they are the strategic depth of the coalition China wants to lead.
And now they're pivoting west into the Middle East.
A vital move to break Western containment. They scored that historic diplomatic coup, mediating the Saudi-Iran reconciliation, and their relationships there are moving beyond just energy into the digital economy and infrastructure. The Middle East is a key hub for their Belt and Road initiative.
So the CEO's grand strategy is to fight but not break with the West while building this alternative, multipolar world order.
That's it in a nutshell.
Now, India's board of directors mode in diplomacy. This is the high-wire balancing act.
An extremely smooth one. They practice what you could call multi-alignment. They play this continuous, complex seesaw game, refusing to be locked into any single block, and they maximize their benefits from all sides.
So with the West, they play up their democratic identity and their China plus one status.
And they get access to Western tech, markets, and intelligence. But this rapid transfer has exposed some real problems. Famously, the quality control crises with India assembled high-end electronics.
Reports of panel gaps and dust in the camera lenses.
Exactly. And that raises a serious question for Western companies and consumers.
Is it worth it?
Is prioritizing geopolitical alignment over the proven quality of the Chinese supply chain actually cost-effective? It's the Achilles heel of the whole plus one strategy.
And yet, while courting the West, they managed to keep their strong ties with Russia through the Ukraine conflict. How did they pull that off?
It was a masterful and very profitable strategic play. India bought huge amounts of heavily discounted Russian crude oil.
Capitalizing on Russia's isolation.
And then they refined that oil domestically into things like diesel and jet fuel and sold the finished products back to Europe at high international prices.
They became a strategic middleman.
A very profitable one. It helped their economy, it preserved their independent foreign policy, and it even subtly helped the West by easing energy prices. And it kept Russia from becoming totally dependent on China.
It perfectly sums up the difference. China, the iOS, wants to rewrite the rules.
And India, the Android, just gets really, really good at navigating the existing rules and exploiting conflicts to its own advantage.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from the social fabric of the caste system to the global scale of military power. This rivalry is so complex, it's not a simple zero-sum game.
Not at all. And it leads us back to this ultimate question. This rivalry between China and India, it's fundamentally an ultimate experiment in human organization, a test of two completely opposite philosophies of modernization.
In the old manufacturing era, we said China's centralized CEO mode was clearly superior for scale and speed.
But the world is changing. We're moving into this non-linear, high-entropy age of AI, climate disruption, and just pure complexity. An age where innovation and survival might come from the margins and chaos, not just from the center.
So what are their final bets on which model is best suited for that uncertain future?
China's bet is systematic intelligence. They are trying to integrate every single social cell, every company, into one hyper-efficient system, using AI and big data for ultimate top-down control. Their goal is order and predictability.
And India's bet?
India's bet is ecological evolution. They accept and maybe even embrace chaos and low efficiency. They rely on their massive diversity and disordered vitality to find anti-fragile survival and uncertainty. They trust that the messy resilience of the system will generate innovation from the bottom up and help them adapt to shocks.
That's the essential tension. The winner might not be the one with the highest GDP, but the one that proves most resilient when things go wrong.
Absolutely. So the provocative thought for you, the listener, is this. When the black swans are rampant, when a pandemic, a climate disaster, or some unforeseen technology hits, which structure will prove more robust? The finely tuned machine that relies on perfect order, or the wildly growing jungle that thrives on noise and chaos?
It's two starkly different paths to modernization and survival, a choice between the philosophy of ultimate order and noisy resilience. Thank you so much for walking us through this.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you for tuning in to your show. We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.